Hello, and welcome for this new release of Xen Orchestra. This time it's the 5109, and that's the release of July. It's midsummer here. We're happy to present you what's up in this release, and as usual, we'll talk first about project and community. So to give you what's going on with the entire Vates ecosystem. And first, we are starting with running LLMs, what has been called as AI, but mostly large language models, to run on your machines running XCPNG. So we made, in fact, two different blog posts. The first one is explaining why it's a good idea to do that, mostly for data confidentiality and being sure that what you ask is safe on a place that you're running your machine and not giving all your personal or business data to a third party provider. So that's the why, and you keep have a look on the article wrote by Mark, and then you have the how to that I wrote myself, which is how to actually do that with XCPNG. So it's not very complex. It just explains how to make a PCI path through with a NVIDIA GPU, and then from there create the VM and use, in our example, we'll use Olana, which is a powerful tool to run your LLMs of your choice, and then how to use that with Open Web UI. So consider this as a guide, but demonstrating that you can run LLMs on top of XCPNG and Xen Orchestra, and even like kind of advanced use cases, thanks to Xen Orchestra, are not that complex. For example, PCI path-through can be done directly from the UI. So take a look on that if you're interested to test. That's, I think, might be interesting leads, and you can even go fast, copy paste the commands, and start to enjoying that. So let's talk now about XO6 and more about let's say feedback on what has been done, and what's going on right now in the future. So we call that inside the making of Xen Orchestra 6. And I think it's an interesting read because you will understand more about why we decided to go that route, to write something from a greenfield perspective, to start it from scratch if you prefer, and also why what are the targets of that, and what's going on right now, and what is the, let's say, I want to say the end of the line, but at least the main target we have, which is for the end of the year. And it's a pretty interesting read, I would say a relatively complete one, and also to give you some spoilers, the difference in performance and load time in, let's say, mid-sized large infrastructure, where the time to load everything in the existing web UI takes a lot of time, and with XO6, it's a lot faster and by an order of magnitude. So it's a really cool thing coming with XO6. Remind you can try already XO6 by adding /v6 in your XOA URL. So if you want to do it, feel free to do so. You can. So, what's next? We are also giving you an update and a roadmap regarding the Windows PV drivers. As you know, right now, the default path to use those PV drivers is to use the Citrix ones because they are signed by Microsoft. But we wanted to share what's going on and why it takes time to get them signed by Microsoft. But the great news I'm really proud of, and I wanted to share with all of you, is the fact that now we have a maintainer of those tools directly within the upstream Zen project. So it's a Tudin, who is now the maintainer of it. He's the author of the blog posts about the update and roadmap about those PV drivers. And basically, it's not just being maintainer officially upstream, but also adding many enhancements to those drivers to be compatible with more features, to be more robust, and fix many bugs that we had with the Citrix drivers. But I mean, we cannot blame them. That's the main solution until now, and now we hope that we'll finally have Microsoft signing our drivers, because they are already better than the Citrix one, and we are working faster. And so that's why those drivers are really great, because all of those improvements, and we are both working on the upstream and the downstream. So have a look on the article. It's pretty complete and gives a recap on what's going on and what's next. Let's move on the XCPNG updates for this month. So two different train of updates. One which is more maintenance, and the other one which is dedicated to security. We have one announcement per train of update and per LTS release. And for now, as you remind, we have two LTS releases: 8.2, 8.3. 8.2 will be EOL for September. So remind that it's time to migrate to 8.3, but still we continue to deliver security patches. There's one for AMD with an AMD vulnerability, and there is mostly other smaller improvement and fixes for it. So that's what we got for everything outside the XO release. So let's switch to the Xen Orchestra release by itself, and we'll talk first about the backup. If you remind, in the last 2 or 3 releases, we made a big change about how the backup code is handling the overall backup process and workflow. So we wanted to stay on stable as long as we weren't sure the maturity and stability of the code was proven. And after 2 months without any reported problems, we are proud to announce that finally Stable will get that code now. So the Stable version will enjoy all the new backup engine we have, which is improving existing backup process, but also preparing for the future and being compatible with more formats, including VMDK and QCO2. So for the first one, will help for VMware V2 vtool, and the QCO2 will help to back up any drive that is even beyond the 2 terabytes. So if you want to have a reminder on what's inside this new backup engine code, feel free to read the blog posts. It's like 3 months old, but still provides very interesting insights on what's going on. We also improve the backup by, let's say, generating more meaningful error messages when you have a problem and it's related to your story. I think that's the right time to tell you. We had a user running a backup with their XCP infrastructure to NAS, and the backup were running perfectly fine. But the user was using, the backup health restore automatic restore check or health check backup feature that is allowing Xen Orchestra to automatically restore a VM, check if it boots, if the operating system boots, and then remove it and just, giving you the output of the test. And they were using that, and they realized the health check was basically failing, and they didn't know why, because the backup was working correctly. And they realized their NAS was starting to fail and to have corrupted blocks. And so it's a great reminder that first, even if a backup is working fine and transfer fine, if your NAS is corrupted afterwards, then you can lose all your backups. And the lesson for this story is you must test your backups. And I mean, you have now the feature since, I don't know, probably 1 year or even a bit more than that, when you can test automatically your backups. So this is really something important, because a backup you haven't tested isn't really a backup. And clearly, because you don't test, if you don't test often, the day you will need them, maybe you won't find anything working. So that's critical, and you have the feature, so use it, because it, without that we couldn't find the problem, and the user will probably continue to run backups and thinks everything is working until they need to restore the files. So what we decided to do now is, also, if we cannot access the backup correctly during a backup run, we'll make sure that the message is clear there's a problem with the backup repository. So combined with the automatically health check backup, then it's a very powerful thing to be sure that you cannot trust 100% your NAS, because problems could happen. So we're happy with that feature, and that story is, to me, really important to tell. Test your backups. You could use our feature, because if you don't, you can even not use that feature and test them manually if you like, but still you need to test them at some point. Otherwise, you will have a big problem, because corrupted backups by itself is not a problem, but it's when you need them, if they're corrupted, that you are in deep trouble. So Anyway, moving on the core UI section of the blog post announcements. As usual, a very quick reminder: core UI is let's say, the name of the shared component between Xen Orchestra new UI XO6, but also the component from use inside XO So some news on the components: we improved the progress bar, which is could be now used both for a percentage, but also a capacity use in gigabytes. So that could be useful for hard drives, backup repositories, but also even memory and so on. We used another component called the data ruler. So you could present all that usage correctly, like a gauge helping to see how much used is something between 0 and 100, with the 50% in the middle, helping to visualize how much is used. So it's more aligned with the design system we've made. We also included a new icon system because icons are essential in a software like Xen Orchestra and XO, and we wanted to be sure it's easy to add, remove icons. If you remember, we had also a lot of icons in XO5, but it was added layers after layers on how to use them. It was really complex and hard to replace. Now it's meant to be easy to add any kind of icon, like, for example, operating system icons and so on. So that's why we decided to get something a lot easier to use and more future-proof, if you like. Let's talk about XO6 specifically. So there's the blog post I told you earlier about, the state of the project and what's going on, what's next, and so on. We have also some specific components designed for XO6, like the alarm item, which is a card containing all the errors or messages coming from XCPNG, and find a way to display it correctly with the right numbers, texts, and so on and so on. It sounds, I would say, easy, but believe me, when you have different things that could happen on which VM, on creating the link, the duration, and so on, and how to display that with the capacity to stack and unstack all those messages and to open them and so on. That's a very practical thing, and it took time to design correctly. And this component is now available to be integrated in the next improvement of XO6. The other big improvement we are making is the capability from XO6 directly to connect to another pool. So that's great, because until now you had to connect within XO5 to use in XO6. Now you can use only XO6 to add new machines. And so when you connect, then you can have let's say, a shortcut to connect another one when you have like 4 or 5 to add, or to see the dashboard of the pool you just added. So it's very convenient, and this page is now directly part of XO6 UI. Regarding XO there is minor, I would say, updates, but the most of the work was to be sure that we are entirely using the core components, because sometimes XO is was created a bit before XO6, and so we created specific components for XO, and now core library is getting faster and faster. We could get that being late finally fixed, and getting XO using all the components, the shared components with XO6. So as we're going faster and faster with the core UI, we are giving more and more stuff directly in XO6 and in XO. Regarding XOA, so you have the XO Hub, which is providing turnkey templates that you can deploy in one click. We made a small refresh on Ubuntu 24.04. It's a minor thing, but we have more and more automation to generate those templates. So expect more templates to come, and more updated templates to come. Some will be removed, like very old Debian versions and so on. But it's moving, pretty fast, and we're happy that we have the framework to generate up-to-date templates for all of you. So stay tuned on that. Let's talk about the REST API now. So the REST API is meant to replace the JSON RPC API in the future. It was like a two-stage project. First, we wanted to create it, and then we decided to make it compatible with the Swagger automated documentation system. So basically, we have some endpoints that are already migrated from JSON RPC to the REST API, but not yet in the Swagger. So we migrate, endpoint after endpoint to be sure to be compatible with the Swagger API. So what does it yields? Let's say having those endpoints within the Swagger. It's really great because it gives you right inside the web application of Xen Orchestra. You can just in the URL of Xen Orchestra type I think it's API/v0/docs, and you can have an entire documentation telling you which fields, how to use them, how to fill them, what types are expected, and so on. So it is fully open API compliant, and it's really important because it means that if you already develop some, I don't know, specific scripts or component inside your infrastructure with any other open API thing, then it will be exactly the same principle. So it's like just another open API that is easy to use, helping to reduce, the amount of work to integrate Xen Orchestra API within your existing scripts or IT, whatever you need to have automation. So this is moving forward pretty fast, and we are happy with that. We have almost all the endpoints migrated to it. Most of them were related to alarms, but more is going on. So expect that in a few releases, we get all the endpoints within the Swagger, and we hope that for the end of the year, almost all the JSON RPC endpoints will be entirely migrated to the REST API for not almost, for everything. So this way, you could use it, but for now, we prioritize REST API endpoints on what people are expecting for it. So if you have anything that is not yet inside the REST API, just tell us, we will prioritize it. Let's move on with the DevOps tools. This month, we have a new release of the Xen Orchestra Cloud Controller Manager. So as a reminder, we announced last month, but it's giving the ability for a Kubernetes cluster to be aware on which host and which, if you like, place or data center the nodes are running. So it's like synchronizing or giving more data to Kubernetes so it could make the right decision regarding partitioning and having all the nodes in the same place, and so on and so on. So we improve that controller that is working with the XO API to also update and synchronize when you do live migration. For example, if you live migrate a node from a data center to another data center, now it will tell Kubernetes that there is a change and the new host where the node is running is there. So this is helping to make the CCM always, synchronize with the content of your infrastructure. So if you're a Kubernetes user, this is really something you should tests because it's great and provides a better understanding on the underlying infrastructure that you have running with Kubernetes on top of XCP and Xen Orchestra. We also made a new release for Pulumi, which is a provider for infrastructure as code, which is a fork initially of Terraform. And we did the update for Terraform, so the logic was to make also the update for Pulumi, and we're really happy with the Pulumi approach regarding open source. So that's a new release for it. It's 2.1.0, yes, and it's already available. So if you want to give feedback on that, if you have any feature requests, feel free to ask for it. Let's move on the V2V tool, which is VMware to Vates. Maybe at some point could be a B2V because it's Broadcom to Vates. Still, just wanted to tell you that we are working on something really exciting on our end. We are creating a new backend to be able to migrate VMware VMs through another endpoint and not just directly the ESXi API, which is kind of limited. The new framework we're using is using the virtual disk development kits from VMware. So it's a VDDK. And it's using NBD, which is a protocol we know here, and we made initial tests, and it means that the migration is faster on the VMware side. It uses less resources, and we will be able to make a warm migration regardless the VMFS version. In fact, not just ESXi version, but VMFS, because newer versions of VMFS cannot be used to do warm migration. But using VDDK, then you could do that. So the code will be easier to use and maintain. The only downside is we cannot redistribute the VDDK ourselves, but we will, provide a script that is doing that for you and make it, easier to migrate from VMware, which is still a priority for us because we are migrating, tons of VMware users every day, and better those tools are, faster we could make that migration. So it's moving to the right direction. Regarding documentation and guides, we continue the long but very important work on improving the documentation both on XCP and Xen Orchestra. We revamped the entire backup scheduling page with the feedback the community, gave us about sometimes when it's not clear, when you do this and that retention schedules and so on. So we took time to explain that completely in the documentation, so feel free to have a look. Even if you thought you understood it, then sometimes you might have some surprise. So yeah, to take time to take a look, probably worth it. On the translation aspects, we'll continue full thrust with Lite, which is a great tool to make translation, and we have improvement in various language. And we also hope to have potentially Portuguese or Brazilian to be there very, very soon, because we have someone in the community working actively on that. So kudos and thanks to him. We hope that for the August release, we might have large parts of the UI translated in Portuguese. And finally, as usual, the Misc section, which is like small improvements. And as you know, we want to focus heavily on XO6 and XO Lite. So there is less and less improvement in the XO5 UI, but still there's some improvements, like when you remove a VM snapshot, it wasn't clear. It was telling that you're sure you want to remove the VM. And it's true, it's a VM snapshot, but it wasn't clear. So we improved the message. We also had some feedback with users asking for confirmation, even if you just remove one record. Originally, we had this model for deletion starting from like 2 or 3 quantity of 2 or 3 items, and now since some people like mistakenly remove some items, they wanted to be sure to do that. So now the warning, the model window is displaying as soon as you try to delete one item. So it's like more on the safe side of things. And finally, we are now displaying, if you are using the QCO2 beta, which is alpha right now, but should be beta in the next weeks, the image format is now displayed directly within the disk inside the SR view. So you could have an SR mixing the different formats. So if you do that now, you can easily see what is in VHD and what is in QCO2. And obviously, as it's a 10 terabyte drive, it's clearly QCO2, but still, sometimes you have no way to know it without taking a look here. So that's why we improve XO5 to be sure you are seeing it. That's it. So, that's we are in July, and again, midsummer in the northern hemisphere, and usually, especially in France, it's time to have a lot of vacation. But despite that, we managed to have a decent pace for this blog post release, which is still pretty decent. We hope to have another decent release in August. But believe me, September will be crazy busy with announcements. So just enjoy, the summer if you are in another hemisphere, and then see you in August for the end of this summer and discussing about what's next for August and beyond. So thank you very much for watching, and see you in 1 month. Bye bye.